the word scares people, and I get that. But for me, working at uh a box store, or like a our big box stores that we go to, that sell groceries and TVs and all that stuff. I'm not going to name the name. Them being a greeter, or myself being a greeter there because I have to, and not because I want to. That's more scary to me than anything.
I don't know why you would want to, but I go with the idea.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to offend anybody, but that's a real thing.
Yeah,
And my thing is like, if you can get a budget down where all you're doing is telling your money where to go, you can direct some of those funds after you pay down some of your debt, so you'll have more money to invest if that's what you choose to do. You can invest, and you can make a line item in your budget to invest,
you
and take
certainly
that
can.
$200 or even $100,
Whatever it is.
and put it into a mutual fund or an ETF or a single stock. Like if you can do that, and you can still have your $200 sneakers or whatever you want to do, but you're at least putting money away for the future. Like, I think because of, in my personal opinion, because we're making way more money than our parents have ever made, and we feel like that money's just going to keep rolling in. It's never going to stop.
That's the fallacy, right?
And
That is the
yeah, go
true
go ahead.
fallacy. It's in these biases are universal, but we use a lot of them in the investment business, right? Because it's talking about behavioral, whether it's behavioral economics or just your human behavior and how you're going to respond to different stimuli, um, when you're making investment decisions. But recency bias is one of the worst things we could ever have in our minds. We have to cleanse ourselves of what it means to have recency bias. It's toxic to us because
And
it
recency
prevents.
bias is what, for the listeners who
I'm going to
don't.
explain it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
go ahead.
Recency bias is what you just said, just really just terming it for your audience here. It's to think that what's happening now or what has just happened is going to continue.
Hey, family. This is Che Willis coming back with another episode of Wealth is a Journey podcast. Guys, we're moving and shaking it out here. As you can see, I got, what I'm saying, I got my microphone, got the lights right. We doing some things out here, man. So thank you so much for tuning in. Um, for all the new listeners, I always start this way. For all the new listeners, thank you for joining our podcast. On this podcast, we talk about faith, family, and finances, among other things. For the return listeners, thank you so much for returning. Hopefully, we're adding value to your life. Today is a special day, man. Um, I got my guy Don Bird on here today. This is it. The funny part is, I got introduced to Don by my man Greg Turner. So shout out to Greg. Thank
Shout
you
out to
so
Greg
much,
Turner.
bro.
What's up,
Shout out to
Greg?
Greg. This is my boy. We grew up in Ardmore together, and he was like, "Yo, man, I got my man Don. You gotta talk to him." We had one conversation on the phone, and we was on the phone for like an hour,
Right.
just chopping it up, talking about investing, talking about just life, talking about how we're structuring our families, and setting our families up to succeed. And I'm like, dude, you got to be on the podcast, please. So I've been begging this guy for
Absolutely.
for months to be on my podcast now, and we finally were able to make it happen. So Don, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man.
Absolutely, Che. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. And like you said, that first conversation we had was pretty epic. I wish we had it recorded. I hope we can do it again. And wow, thank you again. Thanks to Greg for putting us together. And I am excited to be a part of your conversation.
Absolutely, Don. So Don, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, just give the people just a tidbit of who you are, what you do, just a snapshot.
All right. Well, my name is Don Bird. I've been in the investment business for over 20 years. I started out my career at Vanguard. What a great place to start a career. That's where I met Greg, in fact. Greg Turner, met Greg Turner at Vanguard probably close to 20 years ago. And from there, just been on the journey of investing. I got a great opportunity at Hurdle Callahan, where I worked with institutional asset management, large endowments and foundations, high net worth family groups, helping them structure their investment portfolios and make the best decisions for their capital allocation decisions and ultimately their overall investment planning for their family. And I've also had the opportunity to work with some pensions and governmental organizations and actual governments in other career opportunities. And now what I do is similar to what you're doing, Che, working with individuals who need personalized, customized help with their finances, with their understanding of the base level from budgeting to saving to investing to being enterprising, thinking about other types of investment options, whether it's real estate, private equity, hedge fund, um, you know, angel investing, people they know they want to get an idea of what they want to invest in. It runs the gamut. But the majority of what I do is helping people understand their basic finances, like their 401k, how they should save, how they should invest and budget.
That's awesome, man. And what I want to know is, uh, first of all, you don't see many, for me anyway, you don't see many people who look like you or myself in that arena, or at least talking about finances. Um, what was it like in the Bird household growing up to get you to where you are now?
Wow, that's a big question that I sometimes ponder myself, but I guess I don't give myself answers. And here we are. But no, the Bird household, I grew up with my mother and my father and my brother. So it was four of us in our house. And, a traditional household in a traditional setting in the inner city. We grew up in South Philly. We moved to Southwest. I think we were just about as quintessential as you get as a, Black family growing up in the inner city. My parents were generally what you would call working class. We probably moved into the middle class as we got a little older, but never fully set into what we would consider today as a middle class household. But good family values, hardworking people, and they raised two great sons that went on to do a little bit more than their parents did. And that's kind of where I found myself at Vanguard, and I got a great opportunity not only just to go to college and get a master's degree, but to get a job at an investment firm was new to me and my family. So, um, being ambitious, being full of zeal and light, and thinking of myself as a 21 year old, kid coming out of Temple, being in the investment business, just working at a company like Vanguard, dressing like this, right?
Yeah.
And watching my dad work with his hands for, 30, 40 years was a new experience for me, for my family, for our legacy, for our entire bloodline. So, one of the things that I took from my dad was the good steward that he was over our family's finances, over his credit, over his spending, and just how he thought about investing. Now, certainly wasn't able to manifest everything he wanted to do in his life as far
Mhm.
as investing and making money for his family, but I learned a lot of core principles that I think helped me in my life as I went to build on what my father did. So, I can't say that it was anything specific that got me to where I am, except for my parents believing in me, sending me to school, and giving me the right head on my shoulders to keep going and where I was headed. And then the investing business, the finance business kind of fell into my lap because I knew I wanted to work with people. I knew I wanted to work in some money capacity. I'm hesitating because I wanted to be a lawyer this whole time, and I realized I didn't want to do that for my career after I got out of college, and I took the LSAT and I went through the process, and I got some opportunities at Vanguard or first at Northwestern Mutual, which is a different animal. If you know what that is, it's pretty much you're selling life insurance and trying to induce those people to ultimately build an investment portfolio, which is very tertiary to that business. It's really your life insurance salesman. So I knew I didn't want to do that, and that's why Vanguard was such a great opportunity for me because it was a job that allowed me to grow my skill set, find what I love to do, and build on some of the things that I learned in school, but also in my household. So it's funny to talk about this story because I'm thinking of it now as you ask me, like, wow, it's been some time since I've considered how I got where I was, especially from my childhood. But here we are. This is a great conversation because it's getting me thinking about what is it that gets a person like me or you to, to the investment business, especially when you rise through the ranks and through the different styles and niches of the investment business. So wow, I
Yeah.
credit my mom and my dad a lot, but my dad really was the person that I think gave me that understanding that it was a way to use money to your advantage. And there was something to be learned that he didn't know, but you take your parents' lack of opportunity and knowledge, and sometimes that's a catalyst for you to build on. So I think that's what I did at Vanguard, and it was a great experience for me. And I got the greatest opportunity of my life after Vanguard. I'll talk a little bit more about that as I let you get in there.
Well,
Yeah, it was an experience for me to grow up in my household and learn the things I've learned
yeah.
and be who I am to the people I grew up around. It's a pretty fun experience to have done what I've done in my life and to basically pour back into most people that I know.
Yeah. As you were telling the story about your dad, I thought about my grandparents because I grew up where I grew up in Ardmore. My grandparents took care of me pretty much. My mom and dad were are there, but they moved to West Philly, and the school system was better where I was at, so I
Yeah,
stayed in Ardmore with them. Went to Laura Mary and all that. So the one thing that I loved, now that I'm thinking back as you were talking about your story about my grandfather, is he always had money.
right,
He had money in his pocket all the time. Like he had knots of money in his pocket. And I'm like, yo, my grandpop is rich. As I was a kid. But as
right,
you were talking, I was thinking about what you learned from your dad to take you to the next level. And then what I learned from my grandfather is to always have money, to save money. So now when you have money, instead of having a knot of money in your pocket, now let's put that money to work.
right, right.
So I was thinking as you were talking about that, I'm just thinking back to my grandfather and even my grandmother, how they used to always have money, and I just thought that was great. How you just took it to the next level, and I believe that the things that we're teaching our kids now is hopefully they're going to take what we do, even though we're on another level from where we grew up,
Sure,
to an
sure.
even higher level.
Absolutely. I always say when I'm talking to people or it comes to this point in this conversation, just imagine if somebody would have thought of you 50 years ago, right? When you think about investing, right? When you hear all the stories, if you invested $10,000 in Berkshire Hathaway in 1956, let's
Oh
just say,
my
right?
gosh.
How much you would have today, right?
Yep.
And consider that along with the thought of of yourself, right? And say, well, what if someone would have thought of you, Che,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Right? Or Don. What if someone would have thought of me 50 years ago? I'm not 50 yet, so that would have been before I was born. And opened up a small account and just put $10 a week in it in the Apple, right? Or IBM, right?
Hmm.
And imagine the wealth engine, not only what it would be for your family, but for you as you come of age and can use that as a foundation, as a launch pad to yourself, your career, your business. Now, I always think about it in the cosmos or the big lineage legacy terms, right? Because you're your grandfather, right?
Yeah.
Your grandfather is you, right? I always think about my children, my daughters, and I say, look, when my daughter has a child and it's a boy, that boy is me,
Yep.
right? And
Absolutely.
that's their mother. So, treat your kids, right and correctly so they treat you right and correctly, but also pour into them like they're going to pour into you one day as a mother. So I think of my son or my grandson, my kid's son as one day being me. So care for yourself, care for your children's children like yourself. Invest for them, teach them, show them the way because you always have to remember that 50 years ago, 40 years ago, someone was making plans to have you, and did they have a IRA, or did they have a a UTMA account set up, a trust account set up, a savings account set up? And if you're able to go ahead and do those things, I always try to get into the mind of what was it like to be my parent, or what was it like to be, what's your lineage, right? When you really ponder it, what's
Yeah,
your legacy, or your bloodline? How did you get here? Well, your grandfather was around making decisions 75 years ago. Somebody's grandfather made a decision that impacted them. And we're that grandfather today that we have to consider ourselves, and one day we're going to be there to have a grandson, a granddaughter, that, well, our decisions are going to impact their life from a wealth perspective and everything else. But this conversation is about how wealth impacts us. And that's something that I consider when I go to, think about my life, my kids, and how those things impact us all as
yeah,
a connection point. It bonds us um, through the thorough of history,
yeah.
and our blood and our legacy.
Yeah, and I'm big on that, man. And what really took it to the next level for me was during the pandemic. And I think we had talked about this before, but I think it bears repeating. During the pandemic, I realized that I'm trying to give my son everything I never had. Like up to that point, I'm trying to give him
Right.
everything. Going on trips, we're eating in nice restaurants. He's young. We're eating in, nice restaurants, doing all the things. And I'm like, yo, well, if something ever happened to us, how is he going to know? Like, we have investments as well. How is he going to be able to handle the things that we're leaving to him?
Right.
Answer is he's not. But
That's it.
why is he? But why is he not? Because we never taught him.
That's right.
So from that point on, it was my life's mission to make sure that I taught him everything that I knew, even though he was only 8, 9 years old. He was
Right.
super young. But I figured like I gotta pour into him as much information as possible because I don't want him to squander all of the things that we worked for. Now, if he goes into real estate, that's fine. But at the very least, he'll know how to budget. He'll know if he sells the real estate that we leave to him, what to do with it. He's not going to go on a binge to Vegas and do all those things. Like, no,
It's a
we're
real
not doing
concern. It's a
it.
real
Yeah,
concern.
absolutely. But the thing is like is going back to what you said about thinking, into the future and having me in mind. Um Everything I'm teaching him, a lot of the things I wish I'd have known because I'm thinking to
Yeah.
myself, like, yo, if I'd have known this back when I was, his age, I'll be so much further ahead. But I can't do
Mhm.
anything about that now. The only thing I can
Right.
do now is teach him the things that I know. I can't go in the past. I can't do all that. So
Right.
let's move forward. And my life's mission now is just to give him all the information as well as things to give him a leg up or a head start based on what I saw from the people that I went to school with. Because like Laura, Laura Marion, like they
It
got bread
runs the
out
gamut.
there. They got bread, bro. They got bread out there, man. Like,
Yeah.
and so I saw a lot. So I'm like, okay. So now I'm starting to think back to when I was in school, and I'm like, oh, okay, I got it now. So you save, you teach, you invest, you teach, and you just keep doing those things until they understand all the things that you're telling them. And then they're going to have that head start that we wish we may have had
Oh
growing
yeah.
up.
Absolutely. Wow. And I think back to what you were saying about, your grandfather always having money. And I think back to my dad, and he always had money in the way of cash, but
Mm-hmm.
the one thing he had that I wanted was credit. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't, as a kid, you don't really know what credit is. At some level, you do. And that's why, you and me, our generation is the last of a dying breed because we're the last generation to live life like our parents did in a way, right?
Yep.
With, rotary phones and, box TVs and, right? You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I can go on, but I say that to say, we had real money, right? We went to the store at 5 and 6 years old. We knew people in our neighborhoods, and we bought things, right? Water ice and pretzels and stuff, right? But you also knew about excuse me, about credit. When you went to the store, they knew you and you didn't have a dollar or a quarter, and you
Mhm.
said, "Can I bring it back tomorrow?" Now, some people they say no, right? You
Yeah,
were in the store when they would say no to that person, and then maybe with you, you're a good customer. You always paid. You're there every day. They say, "Okay, bring me 50 cents tomorrow." And that was my first introduction into what it felt like to be trusted and what it felt like to have credit with people outside of your family, right?
sure,
And
sure,
for
sure.
real things. And I said, that's a good feeling and I want to have it. And my dad, this is back in the late 80s, early 90s. He had a, American Express card, which was, a coveted piece of plastic back in those
Yes.
days. Now everybody has a platinum, it seems like. But with the credit, that he was able to have access to, got us a lot of things, right? I would hear how my mom spoke of it, and she didn't have that same luxury, first of all. And my dad had really good credit. He bought his parents a house that I own today. In 1970, he bought his parents a house when he was 30 years old,
Ooh,
and I own that house today. So, I think about all the good things my father did with his resources, with his limited knowledge, right? High school graduate, worked with his hands his whole life, and but he was somebody that was a hard worker. He was very enterprising, right? He had a side hustle. He would take his hot dog cart down to the docks where he worked, and before the shift, as a longshoreman, he unloaded the ships. He'd sell coffee and donuts and things to the folks that he worked with. So he made a ton of
wow.
cash. Then he made his money in his check that he used to support his family. So I think about that and how enterprising he was and how resourceful he was and how investment minded he was with his limited resources and knowledge. Um, Inspired me though. That's how I think about when you ask me that first question. I would say, wow, my dad owns like all these houses. He owns the house we live in. He's got the house we used to live in. And just again, things that you do what you can with what you have, and what I saw was a lot, and I wanted it, and I wanted more. And I think it's funny you mentioned the kids today, man. And that's what we're missing. We're missing that zeal, that passion, that drive, that desire that you have
Yeah,
something to work toward.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you know why? Because they
Why?
have it all.
I was good.
They,
You
they,
you already
bro,
know.
fam, it drives me nuts, man. Like when I talk to my son and I'm like, hey, you got XYZ in your stock account, and he gets it, but he's
Yeah,
not as excited as I would have been when I was his age. But then I got to
right,
think to myself, like the things that I wanted when I was going to Laura Marion, we now have.
right.
So it's like, oh, this is life for him.
Yes,
When I was a kid, I would have been like, "You got what from me? You got these stocks?" I'm like, "Okay, great."
I
But
know.
it
It's
that's
so
just
it's so
life.
lost on them because, like you said, living in Lower Marion, our kids go to school right in Lower Marion. We go to private school. I was just having this conversation with my daughter earlier, maybe today or yesterday. The days run together at this point, but it
Yeah,
was recently. And I was just saying, hey, look, similar conversation. When I was a kid, we did this, this, and this. And the difference is that you like it here. You have it all, right? When I was a
yeah,
kid, I was seeing things that I wanted. Similar to what you said, right? The
yep,
kids in Lower Marion are just different. It's a different breed of people
yeah,
and resource. Whereas though, you lived with your grandparents, but you so you had an interesting perspective, right? Like that wasn't, you were there because you lived with your grandparents, but your family and moved your mom and dad moved back to West Philly, and you're seeing all this Lower Marion money to be straight.
for
And you're
sure.
wow, that it's utterly amazing. And I think about how I think of it today in the retrospect, looking at my own life, but then looking at my kids' life, and I say, well, what would my oldest daughter, for instance, what is she working hard for right now? Right? Like I remember wanting to I went to Central High School. I wanted to get in, right? I went
Mhm.
to college. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to get a great career. I wanted to be the best at my class, at basketball, at tennis, at whatever it is I set my mind to, my fingers to. And I think today we're just dealing with a new animal. Like you said, they have it all. Everyone wins. Everyone gets on the team. Everyone gets a pizza. Everyone gets candy.
Yep,
I was just telling her, I said, listen, we do everything. We go to the beach for, the summer. We go to taking you to the islands. You have birthday parties every year for your birthday. I said, you eat out. You belong to Lifetime. You spend your time in Suburban Square. I, I mean,
bro.
I would like it here too.
Bro,
I wouldn't be
bro,
trying to move around either. So I'm trying to get them with the grit that it takes to simply win at whatever it is in front of you. I told her, I said, listen, you're a fourth grader. Fourth grade is set up so that a fourth grader can succeed by themselves, not with your parents doing your homework and saying you did it, writing your papers for you, because that's where it starts. If they can't do the work in fourth grade without being handheld and asking for more time, then when are they going to win at the money game to pick investments, decide when to sell that property, not blow the money in Vegas? These are the things we're instilling in our children right now, right here.
bro, that's a fact, man. And I was just funny enough, I was just in Vegas a couple weeks ago, right, on a golf trip,
All right.
and the guys there, some of them were complaining about their kids, and this is basically the conversation that we're having. It's like, oh man, you should see my daughter's Starbucks bill, and I'm like, fam, your daughter's going to Starbucks, like
Yeah.
that tells me all I
Yeah.
need to know, right?
That's all you
Are you tired of living paycheck to paycheck? Are you tired of being stressed out over money? Are you tired of using credit cards as your emergency fund, bearing you deeper and deeper in debt? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, I'm here to help. My name is Che Willis, and I help families living paycheck to paycheck live the life that they want to live through budgeting and investing. And I understand that the word budgeting is scary. I get that. I'm here to take the fear out of that word. All we're doing is just telling our money where to go. That's it. We're lowering our expenses so then we can use that money to march out into the marketplace to bring us back some more money babies. That's all we're doing. So if you are fearful of budgeting and you need help, I have the answer. Book a call at wealthisajourney.com. Again, wealthisajourney.com so we can get you on the road to living the life that you want to live starting today. Again, wealthisajourney.com. I look forward to talking to you.
need to
And
know.
yeah, and when we were kids, going to Wildwood was a luxury for us, a luxury.
Going to
And
Wildwood and having money for the amusements, you might as well hit me off with a lotto. I won. I won right there.
yeah, but the thing is, like we were talking about, like, yeah, well, I'm glad that the trip was scheduled, the golf trip that we went on was scheduled now, because if it was a week before, then that was my kid's spring break, and we normally go somewhere on spring
Right.
break. When before it was like, all right, well, you gonna sit home or you gonna go outside and play with your kid, with your friends on when we had spring
That's
break.
right.
It wasn't no
That's right.
trips.
I tell you, the first trip I went on was with my children for spring break. Even in college, I mean, we were very modest means people. I
Mhm.
didn't have really any disposable money, especially for trips and planes. In college, I didn't take part in vacationing for spring break. So all the footage that you see out there of people in Florida, Clearwater, Daytona, wherever you might find yourself, I was home hanging, playing basketball. And as a younger kid, I was just like you said, out there playing with my friends and having a grand old time. Whereas though our children today are just exposed to a whole different world of resources, of access, accessibility. I
Correct.
even think about how easy it is to travel today and how cheap it is to travel relative to when we were kids. I mean, remember they used to send you the plane tickets in the mail?
Yep.
I
That's
hadn't
that's
even been
real.
on a plane until I was 15 years old, first of all. So that's just my kids were on planes at one, right? And they used to send you the plane tickets in the mail. It was a big deal, right? It was almost like getting your passport. You had to make sure you got it. They were all there. Now I've been on 1,000 flights, right? You get on the plane, you got your boarding pass on your phone, you got your TSA pre-check,
Yeah.
and you're good to go. So it's a very, very different world today. Starbucks, I say, listen to my kids, you guys are drinking $6 coffee, and you haven't made any money yet. And just to, you got to put it in perspective. See, it's funny. I'll be talking to my kids and I'll say, this is expensive or this is inexpensive, but that's a relative measure in and of itself, right? Expensive is
Facts.
a relative measure.
Yeah.
They don't even have an idea of how to compare. They just know. And to transition the conversation just a bit from talking about what the kids don't understand, it's very instructive to really look at the kids, because you can then really start to see what adults don't understand, right? The adults don't
Facts.
get knowledge just out of the clear blue. A
Yeah.
9-year old, 11-year old, 12, 15-year-old kid, right? Let's say those are the folks we're talking about. What changes when they're 10 years later, 25, 27? Nothing. They
Mhm.
still behave the same way that 14-year-old kid behaved. So basically, the way they think about money is, if I actually have the money in my hand, I can buy it.
Yeah.
No matter what else I have going on, what my obligations are, what priorities are, what the future holds. I see something I want for $219. I have $250 in my bank account. Bingo, I'm good. I'm gonna go buy
Yeah.
that thing. Now, we of course start to see the repercussions of that decision in a week or two, when they don't have money for food or gas or rent. But you would think they would learn from that. And unfortunately, that happens every month, every single month. So that's what we're here for, right? To
Yeah.
hopefully bring and enlighten people to wealth is a journey, first of all, right? You're not
Mhm.
going to get there in a day. That $219, a lot of people rationalize and say, it's only $200. So YOLO, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Wealth is a journey. You're going to get there over time. But if you keep doing that to that $200, they'll do some math. 200 times 200,
Yeah.
you're to 40,000 now, right?
Absolutely.
So it gets at you pretty quickly. And I think that's what we're teaching. And unfortunately, I think our job is a little hard, because inspiring people to do what's best for them, as simple as it may sound, is one of the hardest things in the world to get people to go ahead and do, is what's the right thing for them at the moment.
Bro, absolutely, man. And one of the things that's is a key piece for me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is the budget piece is huge.
It starts there.
Because bec- because it's like the word scares people, and I get that. But for me, working at uh a box store, or like a our big box stores that we go to, that sell groceries and TVs and all that stuff. I'm not going to name the name. Them being a greeter, or myself being a greeter there, because I have to, and not because I want to. That's more scary to me than anything.
I don't know why you would want to, but I go with the idea.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to offend anybody, but that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And my thing is like, if you can get a budget down where all you're doing is telling your money where to go, you can direct some of those funds after you pay down some of your debt, so you'll have more money to invest if that's what you choose to do. You can invest, and you can make a line item in your budget to invest,
You
and take
certainly
that
can.
$200 or even $100,
Whatever it is.
and put it into a mutual fund or an ETF or a single stock. Like if you can do that, and you can still have your $200 sneakers or whatever you want to do, but you're at least putting money away for the future. Like, I think because of, in my personal opinion, because we're making way more money than our parents have ever made, and we feel like that money's just going to keep rolling in. It's never going to stop.
That's the fallacy, right?
And
That is the
yeah,
true
go ahead.
fallacy. It's in these biases are universal, but we use a lot of them in the investment business, right? Because it's talking about behavioral whether it's behavioral economics or just your human behavior and how you're going to respond to different stimuli, um, when you're making investment decisions. But recency bias is one of the worst things we could ever have in our minds. We have to cleanse ourselves of what it means to have recency bias. It's toxic to us because it
And recency
prevents.
bias is what for the listeners who
I'm going to
don't.
explain it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
go ahead.
Recency bias is what you just said, just really just terming it for your audience here. It's to think that what's happening now or what has just happened is going to continue and
Yeah,
persist into the future. And it can be no further from the truth. In fact, you have to fight recency bias with all you have, because recency bias is exactly what makes you skip your workout. Recency bias makes
Yep.
you throw away your nutrition when you make a mistake. Recency bias makes you want the hottest stock that you just heard about. It makes you think that your current portfolio is going to continue being great. Um, Everything that we can think about, it really is a short-term view, instant gratification view, which we have to learn delayed gratification to succeed, right? But instant gratification, recency bias are probably close cousins. And we have to extinguish it in our mindsets and our thinking, because it will just keep you on a gerbil wheel on where you think you are, and you're going to lose that position every little bit every day.
yeah.
And you bring up budgeting and you bring up decision making, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Here's the issue we run into: people don't like austerity. What is austerity for your listener that might not use that word? It's just a word that means that you are going to have to take measures that against your lifestyle. You're going to have to start to bring your standard of living down,
Hmm.
and there's no way around it. It's, you were spending 100,000 and now you have to spend 60. And now you have to figure out what life looks like on 60. No one likes that. And austerity is many times used when you're talking about a country and their finances, whether or not they've mismanaged or just bad economic times for their country, and the whole country is going to have to go undergo a lower standard of living. But I'd like to think about that in our own personal financial situations. And one of the things, like you said, in our lifetime, we are making more than our parents, but that comes with a big but, right? A big caveat. One, things are more expensive today than they
Hmm.
were when our parents were our age or even younger. And the cost of living, which I'd like to even separate from inflation, right? Because the cost of living this life, we know as Americans in 2024, is expensive the way we like to live it, which has nothing to do with inflation at some level. But
Correct.
then inflation is here, which is a monster. If you've been, first of all, you don't even need to understand anything about the economic impact of inflation and how it's determined to know there is a high level of inflation present in our world. Go to
Hmm.
the grocery store, try to buy a house, go to the gas station, put gas in your car, uh, go to really anywhere you've used to do business, and those prices are higher. And inflation is rising at such a rapid rate, it is eating up any level of increase you may have gotten at work or through cost of living.
Yep.
So that is a serious crisis that we are living in. Not to mention, which I really haven't considered this until I started this thought, but the nature of our society and our world has caused people with resources to want to separate from the bad, right? So when you
Hmm.
think about how our country has somewhat devolved in morality, in culture, in integrity,
Yep.
then you can start to understand how people with morals and values, integrity and religion and just standards have separated themselves from the people who don't necessarily want or have those things. That costs money too, right? So if you think about all the added expenses that we've had to shoulder as parents, as individuals, as citizens, you'd be hard pressed to think that we are making much more than our parents on a real basis, right? So now we have to consider that fact with the limited amount of resources we have and what we want in the future. So I think that's where people object to budgeting sometimes because it is scary, and budgeting reflects your values, and you got to tell the truth. And when you got to tell the truth about where your money goes every month, a lot of people aren't really willing to take that leap yet. And that's just a
Yeah.
cold truth about where we are, especially in the area we're playing in at some level on the economic spectrum, who you're asking to budget. It's serious. And whether you're at work, whether it's the government, whether it's your city, budgeting is a truth-telling process and a reflection of your values, and it gets exposed, and a lot of people aren't ready to go down that path yet.
What boggles my mind, bro, is like most of us, I'll say, grew up in the 80s. So we know
Right.
poverty on a whole nother level, just due to the fact of the crack era and how it
Yeah.
decimated communities and so forth. So my thing is like, and maybe I'm thinking of it a little too simple. My thing is, if you know how it feels to not have and be poor, and you know the things that maybe got your family where they are or where they were when you were growing up, why not try to do the opposite? Is that too simple? Or
Here's another. I love science, and I love the economics that or the science that is economics, because it really helps us start to understand human behavior,
yeah,
helps us
yeah,
understand our psyche, how we make decisions, and what really is the driver behind those decisions, and then how hard it is to change. My old boss, John Hurdle, used to talk about three of the most powerful forces on this earth. And the most powerful force on the earth is gravity, right? Gravity is clearly the most powerful force we are dealt every day.
hmm,
The other two are not as clear and present, but they are just as powerful. One is the nature of compounding, right? And when we compare and when we apply it to interest and investing, if you've watched it happen, it's the most phenomenal sight you've ever seen,
bro.
especially over long periods of time. How
Yes.
money can just simply grow like bacteria in a way.
Hmm.
Um, and the third is the reversion to the mean, or mean reversion. And what is mean reversion? Mean reversion is simply saying that, and measured statistically, but again, these are natural phenomenons. We only measure them with our methods and numbers, etc. But the theory or the concept of mean reversion is that your your normal, your natural state is so powerful, is such a powerful pull on your actions and your trajectory, that no matter how hard you try, if
Hmm.
you don't shift your paradigm, if you don't shift your center, then you're going right back to that place.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're going back to the place that you've always been if you don't change the paradigm. You have
yeah,
to almost change you got to change the culture, right?
for sure.
It's so much that needs to be changed when you want to change your trajectory, where you're headed over
Yeah,
time, over long periods of time anyway.
yeah, for
And that
sure.
means your family, right? That's what I'm
Yeah,
getting at. Your family is an anchor to you, and if you don't dramatically change the trajectory of where you're headed, then you're going to be right where your father was.
yeah,
Just give it time.
yeah. That's a tough one for me, bro, because like I try to simplify things as best as possible. And I understand the pull. Like you want to go somewhere in life. And
Right.
there's going to be that pull that tries to get you back to where you once came from.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting like heck never to go back there ever again.
Right.
Like that's what drives me. So my son um doesn't have to know certain things the way they actually are. Like poverty and I'm not saying I was like dirt poor or anything
And
like
I
that,
know
but
what you mean.
you
Right.
understand what I'm saying. So that's the
Absolutely.
driver for me. And I understand that as you continue on this path, like you're going to end up evolving. So the person I was when I first started on this journey is not who I am now. But I
Right.
had to take a
That's what
step
I'm
to get
talking
there.
about. Right. Right.
So the thing is, I was like, I'm changing, I'm tweaking little bit here and there, my paradigm, my center to get somewhere because I know what back there is like, and I'm not going back there.
Absolutely. Right.
So my thing
See,
is like, if I know that and you know that, and not you, I know you, but I'm talking about the people, other people who don't like the way that they grew up. Let's try to take those small little steps here and there to get to where you say you want to be. Like
I
to me, it's
agree with
that
you
simple, but maybe
wholeheartedly.
it's not. I don't know.
It's not. It's not, right? Think about, let's parse out the difference between what is the difference between knowing and learning something, right?
Yeah,
Two different, two similar aspects. To the naked eye, you'd be like, it's the same thing, right?
yeah,
I know it, so I learned it. No, you know it, but you haven't learned it when you don't implement the things that you know,
that's a
right?
fact.
When you know you should eat a certain amount of servings of fruits and vegetables, but you choose to eat chips and Oreos,
Yeah,
well, that kind of proves out my point. If you know you should take 10,000 steps a day for your heart health, for your health overall, but you're taking two, you got an Apple Watch, and you know you got the data.
yeah,
When you know you shouldn't smoke cigarettes, but you still busting down Newports, learning is the key, right? Because when you learn something, it's the mode when your knowledge and the consequences, or the potential consequences and all the data that you have is brought to bear for you to change your behavior, right? Learning something is changing behavior. Knowing something is having a specific knowledge of a thing. You know you shouldn't drive. Tell a teenager, 20-year-old, 18-year-old just got his license. He shouldn't drive fast. He knows that. He would
yeah,
tell you that. Being smart. I know that, old head. But he's still going to do it, right?
yeah, for sure.
You shouldn't drink so much, young guy. I know, but I'm having fun. So that's where you really, and that's what I work on a lot. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because it's
Yes,
causing me to think more and more about this. Because when we start talking to the people that we want to reach, we have to really get into their minds to help them not only know, because you got to think you're starting from a deficit already. You're dealing with someone who has no clue. You're trying to
sure.
make them aware, introduce them to the idea. Then you're trying to teach them with the knowledge, get it to them so that they possess it, so they own it. And then you want them to act on it. Just like everybody knows they should budget.
Yeah,
I guarantee you right now, there's somebody in some high school, college class right now, teacher, the professor teaching the course that doesn't have a budget, right? Because they know it, and he's at work, he's doing his job, but in his real life it's too scary, right? So he's teaching it, everyone knows it. So that's where we need to parse this language and parse this behavior. And I, like you said earlier, I think one of the best ways to get started, I've been talking about this when I talk about my book or investing or opening an account, is just get started. If
yes.
you simply just get started, buy one share. I don't care what share it is. I'm trying to think of a share I just bought that is relative. Oh, Kava is one of the names I mentioned. CAVA,
I saw
Kava.
that on your IG.
Yes,
I
right. I
seen that. Yeah,
mentioned Kava. Kava's doing well, although the market's down overall. Kava
yeah.
was up about 25% before, market's taking a little dip lately. We're talking
Hmm.
about recently,
But it's an opportunity,
long term, which is,
and I said it's an opportunity now to
and it's
buy
an opportunity,
more. Yeah,
right? Right. That's how you got to look at it. If the market were up, you'd be wishing it were back down at 61. It's back down at 61. Go grab it, right? Point
yep,
is
yep.
$60, buy one share, and you'll get at least exposed to the idea of owning a stock. You're not going to get rich from it, but now you can say you're at least at the knowing stage. You know how to open an account, you know how to buy a stock, you got the money in there, all the things required to get there, you did. And start with that. But then another thing we talked about in this discussion was uh whatever amount of money it takes, $10. So now you're saying, okay, listen, I understand you have a lifestyle. See, that's why austerity is so big of a deal, especially dealt at a national level. People hold their lifestyles. It's them. It's who they are. They're not bad people for wanting to maintain their current lifestyle.
Not at
But
all.
when you can't, like as a matter of fact, like it's not like, oh, we should stop. No, you can't keep this up. It's very painful. It's very challenging. In fact, it's somewhat impossible. That's why it's so the last resort. But here's the thing. So maybe you're not willing to take that 200 yet. Take $5,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
add that as a line item in your budget.
Yeah.
Make an agreement with your coach, your advisor, with your partner that we're going to increase this over time. I don't
Mhm.
know how much because that's getting into the personal level of what you're comfortable with. But maybe let's say start out small. Say we're going to increase it 100% by next year. So now it's going to be $10. But if you never build the habit, if you never take your first step, we're fighting an uphill battle when it comes to asking someone to start to identify money they have that they could invest. Right.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we have to really hone in. And while it may seem, that's why I said it might seem simple on the surface, knowing and learning,
Yeah.
but when you really get into the psychology, excuse me, and the behavior behind what makes people tick from a financial perspective, if we can get in between knowing and learning, I think we can start to reach a lot of people. And I think just in 2024, I think that's why you're doing what you're doing. Of course, I've been in investment business for a long time, but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Working with, I told you at the start of this, I worked with endowments and foundations and large nonprofits and large family groups that just had more money than you've ever seen. And it's amazing to watch, especially
Yeah.
over years. Like, wow, this account was 90 million. It's at 160. Wow, how long has it been? 2 years? Like
That's
it just
crazy.
grows just like that. And that's all fine and good, but the people that I want to reach ultimately are the people that are like you and me, right? The people
Yes.
who may not have gotten a chance at Vanguard, young Don Bird when he was 21 years old, who, maybe didn't get that chance and went to work at University of Pennsylvania Hospital and then just kind of got caught in there and they moved up and they never had the chance to, one of the things I've learned in my life and career, which makes me so optimistic of just working with people just like myself, is
Mhm.
that when working in the investment business, you realize that you're in a bubble, right? Especially the types of firms I've worked at, because all the people were investment people. All the people I worked around were doing exactly what I did. They
Yeah.
they were they were investors, they were client facing portfolio managers, all types of titles, but all working and rowing in the same direction. What you realize is that there are so many other professionals. I use my wife as a great example. So many other professionals who are high level, just as smart as you, just as accomplished as you, did a lot of things in their lives, but they just didn't work with investments, right?
Hmm.
And they have no idea, right? Because that wasn't their subject matter, where they found their expertise. They could be in operations, they could be in logistics, they could be in the medical field, lawyers, human resources, any other business field, any other field, let alone business, that they don't have the experience that I have that is, again, universal in the way of investing. I can help you understand so many things that, see, the great thing about money and investing is everyone needs it. Whereas though I don't need logistic support, right? I don't need to
Right.
understand that. Whereas though somebody in the human resources or logistical support, they definitely need investing advice. They definitely need financial planning and advisory advice or whatever. It's so broad, but I'm just giving you some examples of
Sure.
things that everyone needs. Retirement planning, right? So, that's something that I consider when I'm thinking about my business, thinking about my future, thinking about the people that I want to and can work with ultimately in my career and in my business as it grows.
That man, you had mentioned something earlier. Not only do you help people, but I would be remiss if I did not mention this, that you wrote a book. So shout
Oh,
out to you.
yes.
Shout out to you
Thank
for
you.
writing a book.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Absolutely. It's been a new experience for me to be a new author, and to have written a book is an accomplishment for anyone, certainly for myself. And it's been a fun experience. I have it right here.
yes,
All right. Oh, that's my green screen in the way, but
you good. We can
you'll
see
be
it.
able to
I can
see
see
this
it.
on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I was gonna say that, like, so what was the so for me, my book would be the podcast. So that's
Right.
me getting the information out, right?
Absolutely.
You're on Instagram talking about it. So you actually put pen to paper and you actually wrote a book. So what is the give me three takeaways from that people would be like, yo, I need this book. Like what would be three things that they would get from this book to say, I need this?
That's a great question, Shay. Listen, one of the first thing I'll say is to your listeners, to your audience, is have you ever read a book on investing or finance in general? And I'll tell you, I got to imagine most of those answers are going to be no, right?
Yeah.
Just naturally. Okay. So that's the first thing. That's why I wrote it, because I said, people like myself, people like people that I know, most of them haven't read an investing book and they don't know who or where to read one from. So I said, that's the catalyst for me to want to write this book. And then of course, second is the subject matter, right? The information in the book. And one of the best ways to disseminate information and to get your point across is to write. And if you go ahead and write, you will then understand not only what you've written even more and certainly deeper, but you're going to give people the opportunity to understand what you understand at some level, right? What at the level you wrote it, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see my book when I think about the takeaway from it. One, it's something you haven't seen or done before. Two, the subject matter is uh, digestible and easy to read, but necessary to understand for you and your life and your future. And so those are the two main things. And then I wanted to make it accessible to people. I think most people think about investing in the way of being a mathematician or being a super duper whiz that 1600 on the SATs and they got a 140. I don't know what people perceive to be someone who invests, right? Regardless of what you invest in. And what I wanted people to understand from my book, and I've gotten some feedback, which I've appreciated for sure. I appreciate all the feedback I've gotten. But when it's good and positive and helps you even understand your work outside of yourself,
Hmm.
it's a delightful experience. It's very heartening for me to hear people say, I read your book, Don, and one of the things that I love most about it is how easy and understandable you made the concept. You started out very, very basic, and I love that. And I said, wow, thank you, because that's been one of my challenges personally. And I use the book now to help me even talk about investing in a way that is, again, plain and accessible to someone who's never really thought about it. Because, in my career, what I've worked on has been so high level, right? When you're working with an endowment on 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 their portfolio, structuring their portfolio, first of all, it is very complex because they are very focused. They have very, very specific needs. They have very, very I'll say tight risk parameters, right? But the nature of their fund, the nature of their asset is very sensitive to everything. Everything that you come in contact with from a risk perspective in investing, the endowment portfolio is sensitive to inflation, uh, absolute risk, of course, market risk, which is, you know, different than the absolute risk of just investing. And then, of course, all the minor risks that come in other just esoteric things about investing that no one is really concerned with, because an endowment is very focused. They have a life into perpetuity. They have intergenerational equity they had to be concerned with. So inflation impacts their ability to provide later for their students in the future, while they have to continue providing for the students of today. Um, it's, not to go too deep into the weeds, but you can see how wonky it can get,
Yeah.
working with an endowment, opposed to a normal person. So talking the way you would speak to an endowment would just be fall on deaf ears for normal folk trying to just understand their retirement. And that has been a barrier or a challenge for myself, because I grew up in that world, and that's how I spoke, and that's how I thought of investing, and that's how I talked about it. Whereas though you need to have much more plain language and more accessible terms and understanding to get to the people that we want to ultimately be working with. So that's what was I say all that to say that was one of my biggest catalysts for writing the book, is for myself, but also in the same vein for the person, just two different sides, or two sides of the same coin in a way. I'm writing the book for myself to give myself a tool to speak about investing in a plain language way, and I'm giving people an opportunity to access a book that talks to them in that way. And you bring those two together, I think it's just a win-win for everyone, certainly for me, but whoever purchases the book and reads it, I think you'll get a lot out of it. And hopefully it'll prompt more questions to have you reach out to me and join my community, work with me one-on-one, just be in my sphere, join my Instagram, just follow what I'm talking about, what I'm doing. And I hope I'm making my life and my passion accessible to people. So, and that's why I'm happy you and me, we got to connect, because I think
Yeah.
we're on the same journey, just two different roads, and tonight our roads certainly are intersecting, and I hope that we can continue to intersect in the
Oh, for
future,
sure. For
and
sure.
collaborate, and
For sure. Like,
absolutely.
because I'm not a prideful person, and I understand that I don't know everything, right? And I can learn from somebody who's older than me, or I can learn from somebody who's younger than me. And just having this conversation today has taught me something just to think a little bit different from somebody else's perspective. On just because I know doesn't mean I'm going to do.
That's right.
So I learned a lot from this conversation, bro, and I appreciate you, man. And what people don't know is that this is the second time we've actually talked.
No, really.
This is real. This is real. And I
No,
feel
this
like I
is
feel like we've known each other for a long time, bro. Just like, so yeah, we absolutely will continue this dialogue, man. And it was really really good for me. And I just, like, for me and your life's mission is just to take the fear out of what people think is like super duper high level. Now, can you get the
right.
high level? Absolutely, but you're not going to start there.
Right.
Just start small, and then those small steps are going to turn into something huge, and then you're going to thank yourself a year or two or five or
Absolutely.
50 from now, like, oh my god, I'm so glad that I did this. Like, I messed up in real estate when I first started out. Yeah, I did, but that didn't stop me from buying. But the mistakes that I made let me know, okay, well, maybe I don't want to do this. And it may
Right.
take you a bump in your head a couple times in the stock market or in just investing, period.
Oh, I've
But
done it
don't,
myself.
yeah, but don't stop though. Don't, please
Right.
do not stop investing, because it's only going to help you. And then by you helping yourself, you're going to be able to reach back and help those coming behind you, like your kids, your
Certainly.
family, your circle of influence. Like, so that's why this has
Well,
been my
I'll
life.
say this too, Che. Like, with what you're doing some great work with some individuals. We talked on the phone. I got an understanding about, what you're doing. I think it's awesome in the way of helping people with again, budgeting is the step one, right? And if you can get people there mentally, I think you're doing God's work, right? This is the work that it takes to get people there. But
Yeah.
I say that to say, um, you know, where was I going with this? Oh, we were talking about budgeting and um I lost my train of thought. We were going into
Talking about life's work.
I said,
And
yeah, you were saying about getting people started. Anyway, let's keep going. It'll come back to me. But
yeah. So my thing is like it just start and you'll look back and you'll be like, oh my God, I'm so
oh,
thankful.
that's what I was gonna say.
We bumped our heads investing. Go ahead. That's what we were
Right.
talking
You know, and what you're doing, I think people need to utilize your service so much more, right? It's one thing to any service that can help them, whether it's a coach, whether it's an advisor, a community, which when I'm working on building, um, that we can all share ideas and share knowledge. Because here's the thing, the same way you can't go and learn how to be a graphic designer tomorrow or learn how to use Adobe Premiere expert level or any other software that you or you want to build something in whatever, it really doesn't matter, website, if you're not skilled in that area, you're going to spend a lot of time learning the basics of something that you could easily outsource to someone, right?
about. Correct.
Someone that is learning investing, let's say they get their footing, they bought my book and they learn something, they go and open an account. Well, they shouldn't go around thinking they've acquired the level of expertise and experience and knowledge that I have.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
should go learning what, knowing they've learned something important that they can build on. But it's helpful to have someone like yourself to walk them through it, to be a coach, to be a accountability partner, to be an encourager, to be an advisor to them when they reach a point that maybe they don't know or they're unsure. So I wanted to say that, to say that we all need to be more uh, likely, or at least with the propensity to want to have some professional help around us. And that's why a community is great, because you can join a community with those professionals that you build a relationship with that can perhaps answer those questions one off for you. But it really is helpful for, again, with what you do with people, for them to have you help them rather than going and trying to find out and figure out everything that they need to learn on their own.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I would encourage people is find a mentor, find a coach, find an advisor, find a counselor, whatever name they're going under, do your work, your due diligence, of course,
Mhm.
but find someone you can trust to work with and answer your questions.
Absolutely, man. Don, this is this has been one of them ones, man. This conversation has been amazing, man. And I
Great.
will 100% have you back.
Oh man, what a pleasure, first of
100%.
all. Thank you.
Yes.
And I want to say thank you again for not only having me on your podcast and introducing me to your audience and having such a great discussion with me. Your show is amazing. I've been watching it ever since we've been introduced, and it's been a pleasure to talk with you. And I am honored to be a guest on your show, and I appreciate your kind words. And I, of course, will accept any invitation you have to have me back on and further our discussion. So thank you again. Thank you, Greg Turner. Shout out to Greg one more time
My
for
guy.
bringing us together. Yeah, it's a good guy right there. And
Yes,
I
sir.
really appreciate our connectors in our lives, in our world, to bring two like-minded individuals who may have never met, if you left it up to the cosmos, the universe. But here we are, and I think we got this done in quick order since we've met. I think we met back in February. So,
Yes.
um, what a pleasure! Thank you again, Che, and thank you to your audience for uh, listening to our conversation and getting to know me. And you can find me on Instagram. Just go ahead and start typing in my name. I know it's appearing in. You'll find me right away. If you just see what's on your screen and you type it into Instagram or all my socials are the same, Donald.Birdbrand. All of them are the same. You can get in touch with me that way. And I look forward to hearing from you. And I look forward to talking with you more, Che.
Absolutely, man. And I'm gonna put all your information in the description so everybody
Oh,
knows exactly
awesome.
where to find you. Don't I'm
That's
gonna
good.
take care. John, I'm gonna make sure that you that they're able to reach you, man. Don't you worry
Thank
about that,
you.
bro. But
Absolutely.
make sure that you guys pick the book up as soon as we get off the podcast. I'm purchasing my book. I love to read books now, man. I've been reading books now like consistently for like the
Yeah.
last 2 years. And since I
Okay.
joined the community, we read books in our community, and it's
Love it.
brought out the love of reading books. So I will purchase your book as soon as we get off this podcast. I'm buying it.
And
But
we can talk a little bit more offline about your community. I'd love to learn more.
oh, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
But the major point that I want to make sure that people did not miss today is if you are fearful of investing or at least starting on your journey, get a coach or get somebody who knows more than you, a mentor that can guide you in the direction that you want to go. Again, do your due diligence, but please start. Please start. Like that's what wealth is a journey is about. You're not going to start off rich. It's a journey. It's
Right.
steps that you have to take to get there. And if you don't know what you're doing, that's not a problem. Find somebody that you trust to get you and at least get you on that journey, get you started. But Don, thanks again, bro. Hopefully
Absolutely.
people will reach out to you and get the book. As I'm reading it, I will talk about it on this podcast. I'm just finishing up these two right now. Let me see. This book is a game changer, bro.
Okay.
Game changer. And this one in investing. I'm trying to read more investing books as well. So your book, Investing 101, is going to help me. It's going to help me increase.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
So
And it's great. Reading is fundamental, as cliche as it may sound. Man,
yes,
you learn a lot from actually reading a book. And I'm glad you got two books there. Peter Lynch is a very famous investor, and
yep.
he's written plenty of books, and he's a great great investor, great author, and I've learned a lot from Peter Lynch as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to learning from you, fam. And I'm gonna read your book, and I wanted to get that information because again, this conversation helped me for you to simplify things. So if you're able to articulate that, then I'm sure it's in the book as well.
Oh man, I you know what? I appreciate your kind
Yeah,
words, and I always love hearing the feedback. And I'll be interested. Listen, I'm a comment reader, so I'll be reading the comments under your new podcast when this drops.
yes.
I love community. So I love to hear what people are saying. It helps me grow too. So again, Che, what a pleasure. Thank you again. I look forward to another one.
My God, appreciate you, man. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week. Hopefully, you guys have got some nuggets from this episode of Wealth is a Journey. We will see you next week. Wealth is a Journey.